Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we have a really compelling and frankly disturbing story to piece together.
We do.
We're going to be looking at the catastrophic failure and, well, the total loss of a corporate extraction site. It was known only as Outpost 7, and it was located deep, deep in the Amazon basin.
And our mission here really is to use the documents we've recovered to understand what happened. We're trying to figure out why two corporate agents, a man named Locke and another named Stump, just vanished off the face of the earth.
Right. We have a collection of sources, internal logs, some very frank corporate memos, even recovered anthropological texts.
And they all paint this picture of a situation that just spirals. It starts as what the company called a simple land dispute, and it escalates into something the investigating agency could only describe as, well, as inexplicable.
So to really get a feel for this, we have to start on the ground. We have to start with the psychology of the people who were there. And for that, we turn to our first document. It's the personal log of field ethnographer Herr G. Stumpf.
And this log was written just days, maybe even hours, before all communications were lost.
The sense of dread is just immediate. He writes, "I cannot sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Locke is awake. I can see his cigarette glowing." Just that image alone, two men in the dark, in the jungle, one trying to sleep and the other just smoking, watching.
The tension is palpable, and you can feel Stumpf's desperation. He's completely fixated on this one thing, escape.
Yeah, the supply plane.
The supply plane. He mentions it's due the day after tomorrow. That's his lifeline. He just wants to get on it and fly to Santarem, anywhere but there.
And what's so fascinating is this internal conflict he's having. He has to maintain a professional front, especially with Locke, his superior.
Right. There's this confession in the log. He admits he's lying to Locke. He tells Locke he doesn't believe in the local legends and the curses.
But his private writing, tells a completely different story.
It completely contradicts his official stance. He writes that he does believe. He says he can't rationalize what happened to their colleague Cherrick in any other way.
Okay, so let's pause on that. Cherrick. His death seems to be the catalyst for all of this. What is it about Cherrick's death that has Stumpf so terrified? Is it just the violence, or is it something more?
I think it's something much more fundamental. He doesn't see Cherrick's body as just, a casualty or a crime scene. He sees it as proof, as an indictment.
An indictment of what?
Of them, of their very presence there. His fear isn't of the local tribe, not really. It's of the jungle itself. He has this chilling line in his log. He says, "This jungle, it's not a garden. It's one single entity, and it hates us."
Wow. It hates us. Not that it's indifferent, but that it's actively hostile.
Exactly. There's an intelligence to it, a malevolence, and he even gives them a name, a label for what they are in the eyes of this entity. He calls them intruders. He calls them spoilers.
The spoilers, as in those who spoil, who ruin.
Precisely. And then he concludes with this terrifyingly specific thought. He writes, "The jungle knows how to make spoilers bleed. Not just die, but bleed." It's a very specific, very visceral fear.
So you have Stumpf, the ethnographer, the one who's supposed to be studying the culture, and he's completely lost in this psychological spiral. What about the other man in the hut? The man with a glowing cigarette, field director Locke.
Locke is the pragmatist.
Yeah.
He's the company man, the field director. He's supposed to be rational, level-headed.
And we have his notes too, right? His medical field notes.
We do, and they provide a stark contrast, at least at first. Locke is all business. He confirms Cherrick is dead. He notes that the body was, and this is his word, compromised.
Compromised. Such a sterile word for what must have been a gruesome sight.
It is. But even Locke, the pragmatist, can't just write it off. He adds a crucial detail. He says, "Not a simple animal attack."
So even he recognizes that something is wrong. Something doesn't fit the expected pattern of dangers in the jungle.
Right. The nature of the trauma, the way the body was compromised, it was ambiguous, it was disturbing, it didn't add up.
And how did the local indigenous population react? Because their response to Cherrick's death is, it's really unnerving.
It crosses a line. Locke records it very clinically. He says the Indians buried Cherrick,
Okay.
and then immediately after, they began to drink and dance on the grave.
On the grave. So this isn't mourning. This isn't a respectful ceremony.
No. It's an act of, well, is it profound disrespect? Or maybe something else? A ritual, a finality, maybe even an execution after the fact. It's deeply unsettling.
So this is the atmosphere. You have Cherrick dead in a strange way. The locals are dancing on his grave. Stumpf is convinced the jungle hates them, and Locke is trying to hold it all together. This is where the story pivots, isn't it?
This is where it goes from an external threat, something happening to them, to an internal decay. The problem starts to spread.
We jump forward to day 3 in Locke's notes. And the incident is no longer just about the outsiders, the corporate agents.
No. Locke notes a tragedy within the village itself. It's a short, horrifying entry. He writes that a young boy emerged from a hut.
And he was, what, sick?
It was more than that. Locke says he was clutching his belly, blood was coming from between his fingers.
Oh my God.
The boy he collapsed on the threshold and died. Just like that, in seconds.
That is absolutely horrifying. And for Locke, the company man, seeing this happen to a child from the tribe, what does that do to his pragmatic worldview?
It shatters it. This is the moment where he tosses out the medical textbook. He stops looking for a rational, scientific explanation.
What pushed him over that line? Was it the suddenness of it? The blood?
It was the specificity of it, the way it happened. It wasn't a fever, it wasn't a seizure, it was this spontaneous, violent bleeding. And he recognizes it. He recognizes the pattern.
Pattern. What pattern?
The pattern from Cherrick. He immediately connects the two deaths. He writes in his notes, and you can almost feel him realizing it as he writes it. This was not illness, this was retribution.
Retribution. He's using the same kind of language as Stump now.
He is. He's moved from the world of corporate procedure into the world of curses and consequences. He even spells it out. What happened to Cherrick? It's happening to them.
An eye for an eye. That's a direct quote from his notes.
An eye for an eye. He's no longer thinking about pathogens or viruses. He's thinking in terms of justice. A terrible, bloody justice.
And there's one more detail he adds, something that ties it all back to Stump's original fear, back to the jungle itself.
Yes, this is the key. He's trying to make sense of the source of this affliction. And he writes about the blood, noting that it's as if the land itself is exacting the punishment.
So it's not a contagion passed from person to person?
No, it's as if the very soil they're standing on has turned against them. The contamination, or the curse, as Stump would call it, isn't just in the air. It's in the ecosystem. It's in the land.
It suggests an environmental feedback loop. The idea that the land isn't just a passive resource to be mined and logged and drilled.
But an active participant, an agent in its own defense, and in their demise.
Okay, so that's the reality on the ground. Absolute terror, inexplicable death, and the two ranking agents starting to believe they're in the middle of a supernatural event.
A complete breakdown of the corporate mission.
So now we have to pull the camera way, way back from this bleeding, terrifying reality in the jungle to the cool, sterile environment of a corporate headquarters in Germany.
To Krager GmbH.
Exactly. What was their reaction when they started getting these increasingly frantic reports from Locke and Stump?
If the situation on the ground was chaos, the corporate response was the complete opposite. It was a cold, calculated, and utterly ruthless pragmatism.
We have the document, right? The encrypted cable sent from Hamburg to Field Director Locke.
We do. And it's chilling. They start by acknowledging Cherrick's death. They note it.
A simple checkbox, employee deceased.
Pretty much. And then they immediately pivot to the mission. The instructions are crystal clear. Local customs, however brutal, are not our concern.
So the dancing on the grave, the strange circumstances of the death, irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant. The mission hasn't changed one bit. They reiterate Locke's objective: the pacification of the indigenous population and the preparation of the site.
Pacification. That's a heavy word.
It is. It's a corporate euphemism for whatever it takes. The loss of life, whether it's their own agent or a local child, is treated as nothing more than a minor logistical hurdle.
But the part of the memo that is truly stunning, I think, is how they react to the news of the illness spreading through the local tribe. Locke reported these tragic deaths, and Krager's response? It wasn't sympathy.
No, it was opportunism. They saw it as an advantage.
It's right there in the cable. They call the outbreak a fortunate, if coincidental, development.
Fortunate. And they don't stop there. They give Locke an explicit command. They tell him to leverage it.
Leverage the deaths of children.
Use the suffering of the local population as a tool to accelerate resource extraction. If the tribe is weakened, if they're dying, they can't resist. It's a shocking, almost unbelievable example of ruthless, bottom-line driven thinking.
And this memo also serves as a direct warning to Locke and Stump, doesn't it? It's reinforcing this immense pressure on them to just ignore what they're seeing, to deny their own reality.
Absolutely. The memo ends with this emphatic dismissal of anything that challenges their purely financial view of the situation. It's a threat.
What does it say exactly?
It warns that any further discussion of curses or, quote, superstitious hysteria, such as that reported by Stumpf, will be grounds for immediate contract review.
A contract review. In the middle of the Amazon, while people are bleeding to death around them, headquarters is threatening their jobs.
It's a gag order. They are telling Locke to shut Stumpf up and get back to work. For Krager, from their perspective in Hamburg, this was never a metaphysical problem. It wasn't an ecological crisis.
It was, and they used this exact phrase, a simple land dispute.
A simple land dispute. And they end the cable with a final terse command for Locke: handle it.
Just handle it. The implication being, handle it quietly, handle it cheaply, and don't bother us with the details.
And this is precisely why the next piece of evidence we have is so vital. Krager was so determined to dismiss the context, to ignore the superstitious hysteria.
But we have the very document that explains that hysteria. The document that defines the specific horrifying consequences they were about to suffer.
We need to talk about the knowledge that they willfully ignored. We need to introduce the work of Dr. A. Velez.
This is the 1978 anthropological text, The Green Wound, Shamanism and Retributive Ecology in the Amazon.
Exactly. And this research isn't just some abstract academic paper. It provides the essential framework for understanding what was happening at Outpost 7. It explains the violence as something more than random sickness or simple tribal warfare.
So what did Dr. Velez find? What is the core belief system at play here?
Dr. Velez's research detailed the tribe's deep pantheistic belief system, and at the heart of it is a concept called Kara Yara.
Kardiara, and what does that translate to?
It translates chillingly to the bleeding spoilers.
The bleeding spoilers. Stumpf called them spoilers.
He must have picked it up in his ethnographic work. He knew. He understood the term. This wasn't his invention. It was part of the local cosmology.
So what is this belief? What does it entail?
It's the belief that the jungle, as Stumpf feared, is a single conscious organism. It's not a collection of trees and animals. It's one living thing.
And the retribution? The violence? It isn't carried out by the shamans or the warriors of the tribe?
No, that's the crucial distinction. The tribe doesn't punish intruders directly. The land does. The violence is viewed, quite literally, as the jungle's immune response.
An immune response. So spoilers, people who violate the land through, what does the text say, greed, violence, or disrespect, they are treated like a disease, like a pathogen.
Precisely. And the land, the organism, acts to neutralize the threat, to purge the infection.
And the mechanism for this purging, this immune response, it's disturbingly specific, isn't it?
It's disturbingly precise, and it mirrors the exact symptoms that Locke observed in Cherrick and in the young boy from the village.
So what does the lore say will happen?
The belief states that the land will reclaim the blood. Any blood that is spilled, or more metaphorically, any life force that is stolen from the land during the act of intrusion, of spoiling, a debt is created.
A debt that must be repaid.
In kind. This retribution manifests as a spontaneous, unstoppable hemorrhage. The body of the spoiler is, and this is a direct quote from Velez's translation of the lore, forced to bleed from every pore.
Forced to bleed from every pore. It's a gruesome symbolic balancing of the books.
It is. The spoilers suffer the same wounds they inflict on the environment. They bleed as they have made the land bleed. It's a literal biological mechanism of environmental justice. A debt of blood paid in blood.
Which brings us inevitably to the end of this story. How did this corporate denial, this order to just handle it, finally collide with this retributive ecology?
For that, we turn to our final record. This is the classified investigation report from Krager GmbH Internal Affairs. It's dated after the incident.
And what does it say? How does it begin?
It begins with a simple, stark fact. Communications from Outpost 7 ceased completely 48 hours after Locke's final, frantic field note was transmitted.
48 hours of silence. And then they sent somebody to check, I assume, the supply plane that Stumpf was so desperate for.
Yes. The supply pilot attempted his scheduled landing, but he was forced to abort immediately.
Why? What did he see?
We need to pause on the image she described, because it's the stuff of nightmares.
Okay.
The pilot reported that the entire compound, Outpost 7 and the surrounding village, they were saturated.
Saturated.
Yeah.
Saturated with what?
He used the phrase, flooded with blood.
Flooded. That's not a word you use lightly. That's not a shootout. That's not a small-scale conflict.
No. Let's really consider the scale of what that means. For a pilot flying over the site to describe a flood of blood, It implies a level of carnage that is almost incomprehensible. It's far beyond any localized violent confrontation.
It's a total systemic event.
And the investigation report hones in on the source, the epicenter of this catastrophic loss. Where did it all come from?
The pilot identified a source, a fountainhead.
He did. The report states that the Central Operations Hut, the very place where Locke and Stump were quartered, where Stump wrote his log, where Locke saw his cigarette glowing, appeared to be the fountainhead of the flood.
The fountainhead. It all poured out from them, from the corporate presence itself.
Everything points back to those two agents, the ones who had been told to ignore the superstitions and just handle the simple land dispute.
So how does Krieger GmbH wrap this up? How do they explain a flood of blood in their official report?
They don't. They sanitize it, they bury it. The official conclusion is neat and tidy. Locke and Stump are declared deceased.
And the cause of death?
The official cause of death is listed as lost to local hostilities.
Local hostilities. It's such a vague, clean phrase. It covers everything and explains nothing.
But it's perfect for their purposes. Local hostilities allowed Krieger to claim insurance, to avoid uncomfortable questions, and to distance themselves from the entire disaster.
The financial and political cost of a real, honest inquiry would have been far too high.
Far too high. So the solution was simple. The outpost was officially struck from all company roles. The land claim was abandoned. The asset was written off.
They ceded it back to the jungle.
They did. And with that, the incident was officially marked now closed.
But that's not the end of the report, is it? There's an internal note, a final sentiment that wasn't meant for public consumption.
That's right. It's the part that captures the real, definitive moral of the Outpost 7 disaster. It's what they truly believed happened once the lawyers were out of the room.
What does it say?
The note provides a chillingly honest summary. It says, the moral is clear. Some assets are not worth the price. The jungle won. It wanted them out, and it bled them out.
Jungle won. They admit it.
In private, yes. They admit that they weren't dealing with a simple land dispute. They were dealing with an entity that had agency, that had a will, and that ultimately was more powerful than they were. It wanted them out, and it bled them out.
So when we take a step back and look at all these documents together, what does this deep dive really tell us?
I mean, the sources present this terrifying, and I think you used the word inevitable, clash.
Right.
You have this cold corporate expediency, which dictated from the start that indigenous beliefs were just hysteria to be ignored or leveraged.
And that expediency runs headlong into this highly specific, deeply ingrained, and mystically infused method of environmental retribution.
Exactly. By willfully ignoring the context that was right in front of them, the context provided by their own ethnographer, by the lore of the Carrera, by the very evidence of their eyes, Krieger GmbH didn't just stumble into a disaster.
They guaranteed it.
They guaranteed it. They created the perfect conditions for the violent, literal fulfillment of that ancient lore. And the cost of that denial, as we've seen, was paid in absolute horrifying terms.
So the key lesson here for you, for anyone listening, it really seems to be about the critical importance of understanding context before you rush in to exploit something.
Absolutely. Whether that context is cultural, as it was here, or ecological or geopolitical. Rushing in with a purely extractive mindset with blinders onto the local reality.
Well, here it proved to be utterly fatal.
And that leaves us with a pretty provocative question, I think. A question that lingers long after Outpost 7 was swallowed back up by the green.
Okay, what's the question?
If the land itself truly has an immune response to human destruction, as this lore suggests, then what exactly were we witnessing here? Are we looking at some kind of ecological feedback loop that simply defies our modern scientific explanation?
Or is it something else? Did the corporate mindset, the sheer arrogance and greed, did that create the precise psychological and social conditions for a terrifying ritualistic fulfillment of this ancient belief? Did they, in a way, cause the curse to become real?
It's something to think about, isn't it? The next time you hear a CEO on the news dismissing the importance of local knowledge or environmental warnings as just, superstitious hysteria,